Howdy, everybody, and thanks for joining us here again on Expanded Perspectives with me, Cam Hale, and joining me, as always, mi amigo over here, Mr. Kyle Filson.
How's it going, everybody? I'm super excited. This is a special episode.
This is a very special episode. We've been in this studio working on some stuff and laughing about some stuff because this is our 100th episode.
Can you believe it? 100.
100.
The century mark.
I can't believe it, no. But we have a digital audio recorder that we have all of our stuff saved on, and that's what we record to instead of through a computer. And the little audio card that we use crapped out.
Right, like moments before we were going to make this recording.
Yeah, we got ready to start, and it died on us. So every episode we had ever recorded was done on that card. It's kind of like part of the family. So now we're gonna
retire this.
We're gonna
SD
retire.
card.
That's right. We're gonna
every
retire.
interview, everything we've ever done has been recorded on that card.
And now it's not with us anymore. So
nope.
Sad day. Just
you want to play some taps in the background?
Just a sad day. But other than that, it's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
I can't believe it. Thank all of you so very much for taking this ride with us. And just the show is growing like crazy, and we appreciate it so much. I cannot believe we've made 100 episodes of just the Monday show.
Yes.
Of just this show.
No, I never thought we'd get this far.
No.
I mean, honestly, when we first started, I was a little bit shocked that people were even tuning in the first week.
Yes.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And now here we are 100 episodes later, almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years, yeah. Almost 2 years have gone past now, and then almost a year for the elite service has gone by. This thing has it's snowballed and gotten carried away.
But let's look back on these first 100 episodes, and let's kind of review our work, what we've done. You said you had some questions lined up, and I have some equally. Yeah,
I do. I want to know, and this is for everybody that's caught up with all the episodes, is listening to everything. I want you to tell me, Philly, what was one of your personal favorite subjects or even episodes that we've did over the past 100?
Okay. My favorite episode we ever did over the first 100, as for a selfish reason, I would have to say Speaking with John Anthony West was my favorite because I just always remember watching those documentaries as a young man and seeing him. I never thought that one day I'd actually get to speak to him.
Well, that was my next question, was who was your favorite interview?
That would be my favorite interview. My favorite subject matter?
Yeah.
I would have to say probably ancient civilizations, lost civilizations. That's still my favorite.
I got you.
What about you?
My personal favorite as far as like subject matter, Missing 411.
Yeah, right.
I love ancient history, and I've mountains of books and stuff on it, but it's the thing that's intrigued me the most because it's the most, I don't know, it's right here in front of me and it's the most unknown, and that's the thing. As far as interviews, it's John Anthony West.
Right.
It's the same as yours. Look, it's nothing, no knock against everybody that we've ever interviewed. It was a blast talking to each and every one of them. But it was something about talking to John I don't know, it was just different. It was one of those things that really hit home for me because I was such a very young man when I first ever saw him.
Him and Robert Schock. Yeah. We got to speak with both of them.
Yeah. So. And it really did. And it was almost like talking to your grandfather, Yeah. And you and I have been without our grandfathers for a long, long time. So it was almost like that, like a pluck of a heartstring to get to talk to John. It was a neat thing to get to hear him. Has any of your opinions changed on any of the subjects that we've covered?
Yeah, I would have to say, looking back now at the full amount of work that we've done over the last 2 years, I've learned a lot that I did not know about before. Because before you kind of bounce around, you're just reading stuff for personal enjoyment. Mm-hmm. You don't really dive deep into it like you do when you're trying to produce a show. So through doing all the studies, I would have to say that my thoughts and feelings on, I would have to say one topic, I would say shadow people, has completely changed. Because before the show, I just thought people were making stuff up. I didn't think it had any substance to it. I didn't think it was real. But now after doing the show, and not just researching stories and reading stories in books, but just personally having people email and tell me stories and speaking to people at conferences and things, when you can look at somebody and you can tell, man, they're not making this up. Mm-hmm. So my view on it has completely changed. I believe it is real, that there's something to it. I don't know what it is, but I do have to say that before the show, I did not believe in that stuff, and I do now.
That's amazing.
What about you?
Well, what's funny is because I never ask you these questions. Before we start, I told you, I said, I've written some questions down, and I'm going to ask you. That's pretty much my same answer. That's the one thing that I came into this whole deal really skeptical about. Like the rest of stuff I could buy into, because I enjoyed it. But the shadow people things, I won't say shadow people. Let me say this. The ability of there to be maybe a transdimensional passage, the fact that these entities can come and go as they please, much like whenever people speak of Bigfoot coming and going as he pleases,
right,
or the Fae folk or something. It's my belief now of this ability to be, I guess you could say, to walk in both worlds. I didn't really know enough about it, so I always thought, look, that's really not a thing, But now,
right,
out of all the stuff that we've read and all the people we've spoken to, like you said, I'm almost 100% sure that it's there now. I mean, it's one of those things that in my mind, I'm like, man, that's the only thing that can explain this.
Yeah, I mean, remember the guy that we played the recording, the guy Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Remember his encounter and stuff. I mean, you could tell from his voice that he really experienced something.
Yes.
And why would all these people? And it's not a new thing, too. See, until you start really researching, you realize that these types of stories have been going on for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
I mean, they might have changed the names of it. It might have been considered the succubus or something years ago, or, But I believe that these entities in your room, I think that people are really having these occurrences, and it's both frightening and terrifying and interesting at the same time, right?
Exactly.
Now, of course, not all of them are real, but I do believe that there's more out there in this unexplained world than we know about.
Yes.
And that's what's the most fun, I think, about doing this show, is getting to talk to all the people, getting to talk to the researchers, the authors, and just the information
and just all the listeners, the listener stories.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
That's because all you guys out there that are supporting us and everything and listen to the show, there's no reason for you to make up a story just to send to us. Why would you do that? Just to have me, it's one of those things. And you may never know if it's going to get read or not, or if we're just going to delete it or not paying attention to it. So when I get these, it's like people are like, this happened to me. You want to tell them, look, man, you're not alone.
Exactly.
You're not alone. We keep an archive, but there is a bunch of stuff that Kyle and I've got archived away that you're like, this correlates with this sighting that was in Seattle is the same as the one in Arizona. And you start looking across at just our listenership and you're like, there's something up, man. And it's wild.
It'd be neat to publish all these stories one day, in a book or something.
Speaking of that, I got something else to ask you.
Sure.
Is there a certain topic that you've wanted to do more on, or haven't done as much as you wanted to do on it, or maybe haven't even got to do it all? I mean, the last episode I did, I'll let everybody know as far as with the human mutilation story, it's been a year since I've been sitting on it, thinking about doing it, and finally did it. Is there something like that you had? Is there an idea of is there somebody that you wish, let's say that you wished you could interview and really sit and go over and do a whole subject matter, or is there a subject in itself without an interview that you wished you could do more on?
Yeah, I know what you're asking. I would have to say giants. I'm fascinated by the stories of giants that once roamed the earth, or the possibility that happened. And every author that's written a book on the subject that I've emailed and tried over the last 2 years to get an interview set up, I'm just not getting anywhere with them. I've gotten zero success on it. And I would love to speak to someone that knew a lot more about this than myself, whether it be Fritz Zimmerman or Richard Dewhurst or Jim Vieira. I would love to talk to him. Even before he had his television show, I had his email given to me by somebody that I knew. I mean, I've been hitting that guy up for a long time, and I just
can't get him.
I mean, and one time he did respond to me. He told me that he was really busy, doing stonemasonry. I mean, this is before the television show. And so I understand. But that's one subject that I'm really fascinated about, because I want to know if it's real. I think, if you were to ask me if I think it's real, I absolutely think it's real. I think there's too many cases pointing to the fact that could be real. And my own is also why couldn't it be real?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's just the United States that they find these. They find them all over the place. It just seems like there was a lot of them here in the United States. And then you see these mounds. We're not going to get into it. But,
I get
and I know that the case that the even newspapers and stuff probably sensationalized a lot of the stories. That's absolutely true. But I also believe, wherever there's smoke, there's fire. Some of that, I just think that that's possible, especially when like what happens all the time when it comes up with ancient history and lost civilizations. They always discount the natives of the area. Well, why would the natives make it up? I mean, natives talk about little people, and then boom, Homo floresiensis is found.
Exactly.
It's not made up.
Yeah.
I believe it's a possibility. So giants, that's a subject I'm going to stick to. I'm going to keep trying to get somebody on in the next 2 years, and hopefully we can have a giants episode.
We'll find one. We'll get one sooner or later.
Yeah, what about you? I'm going to ask you the same thing. Is there anything that we haven't covered in the last 2 years that you really are interested in, and when you would really like to to delve into and talk about, or maybe a researcher you have that you would like to talk to?
There's one person
that we never got. Well, within reason, right?
There's one person.
Okay, I know who it is.
There's just one, and I've tried every which way I know. I've tried talking to people that know him. I've tried everything I can do to get in touch with him. I've tried going through other people we've interviewed that know him and passing along emails, and I still can't get it done. So, folks, if there's any of you out there that know him, or you get on Twitter and Facebook and you want to send him messages and write on his wall and ask him to check us out and just blow up his Twitter or blow up his Facebook for whatever you can do.
It's Gallagher.
It's Gallagher. No, it's not Gallagher. It's Graham Hancock.
Yeah, I knew that.
It's Graham. I've had a man crush on Graham Hancock since the very first moment I laid my hands on that book in 1995.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Fingerprints of the God. That's the book that really blew my mind open the first time. I remember that I had no idea that there could have been a lost civilization.
You're right.
I'm not saying I just never thought about it till I read that book. And I remember that really changed my outlook on things. And it's led to my thoughts ever since.
And it's not like he's, he may not blow my mind open with anything like he did to start with, but it would just be that privilege of, I would like to speak to him.
Yeah.
That's the one guy I would really like to
he was a pioneer.
Yeah.
I mean, now there's tons of stuff, and I know tons of stuff, so there's not a lot of information that gets presented that I'm like, oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
That I miss anymore, yeah.
You've already pre-ordered the new book, though, right?
Yeah.
The Magicians of the Gods.
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of these interesting topics that we, both have loved doing and ones that we would look forward to doing in the future, a subject that seems to be very popular with our listeners is black-eyed kids.
We get hammered with stories about these creepy...
And emails all the time about time slips for black-eyed kids. Seems to be the crowd's favorite.
Yeah.
There's other subjects that people talk to us every once in a while. Booming sounds and things like that, but the black-eyed kids, people seem to love that. And so we've got some stories today that have both been emailed by our listeners and also some stories that we've dug up ourselves. So we're going to take a break. When we get back from this break, we're going to get into the black-eyed kids. You're listening to a very special 100th episode of Expanded Perspectives. We're back with Expanded Perspectives. Cam, whenever it comes to these stories of the black-eyed kids and many other things that we do on the show, anything in the paranormal, we talk a lot specifically about the paranormal. There's always going to be people that are going to say when they hear these stories, whether it's when an episode's up on YouTube or whether people directly message you or Twitter or things that, oh, that story's not real or this story's not real. I would just like to start out first by saying when you're investigating the paranormal, there's no way that we're going to be able to prove that any of it is real. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point of it being paranormal. If it was provable, then it would just be normal. Mm-hmm. So let's start off, by talking about this. Because every time when I read these stories, even to myself, I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem real. But then I always like, look, Kyle, you have to be open-minded. Were you there when this person saw that? Mm-hmm. No, I was not. So who's to say that it's not real? Because there's many things in real life that if I was to describe to you, you wouldn't think it was real.
Exactly.
Even though it's been proven that it is real. So, when it comes to the paranormal, what do you think is the best way to describe to people, what it is before we even get going with these
Before
stories?
We get going.
Yeah.
I got you. Well,
you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're trying to say because we get hammered with this often.
We get flack sometimes.
Anything that has to do with any kind of creature sighting or, any of this. And for everybody listening, this is how you break it down. The term paranormal, I'm glad you brought it up because I looked that up a while back, and I've been thinking about it for a while. They claim it has existed in the English language since 1920, and it consists, like you said, of para and normal, which defines, they say, or the definition implies that the scientific explanation of the world around us is normal, and anything that is above, beyond, or contrary to that is para.
Exactly.
So it doesn't say anything about it not existing. It just says above normal, beyond normal, or contrary to normal. But also, too, everybody has a different idea of normal.
Absolutely.
What is it that Morticia Adams, the quote is, what is normal to the fly, or normal to the spider is chaos to the fly?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the way it is. And then you and I talk about esoteric. Here's your breakdown. Designed for or understood by the specially initiated alone. So if you're involved in listening to this podcast, you're specially initiated.
That's right, especially if you're an elite member.
Well, exactly. And they even say it's requiring or exhibiting knowledge that is restricted to a small group, limited to a small circle of special, rare, or unusual interest.
Right, and that's my favorite part about doing the show, is we like to present these stories, and let you be the judge. I'm sure there's stories you're going to hear, just like we do sometimes, that you don't believe, and then there's other ones you're going to truly believe. We leave it up to you. Me and Cam are not experts. We never pretended to be experts.
No.
We don't know. We don't know anything.
No.
If you're planning on listening to the show to actually learn something, I can't promise you to learn anything. You'll probably be scratching your head more when you leave, because that's often what happens to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, one of the most popular topics that we talked about before the break is the Black-Eyed Kids.
Yes.
So let's get into that. This is going to be fun. I already know. I've already looked at a couple of these stories. I've been reading an excellent book. Some of you might have seen me Instagram it about a week ago. We interviewed David Weatherly over a year ago, and he was an excellent guest. And at that time, we were talking to him about his book, Strange Intruders. And at that time, I mean, he was known for the Black-Eyed Kids. We didn't bring it up on that interview because there was 150 interviews already of him talking about the Black-Eyed Kids book. But I did recently get the book, and I went through it, and it piqued my interest. Mm-hmm. And that's what made me think, Cam, what are we going to do for our 100th episode? What do people like? And we always talk about everybody likes the Black-Eyed Kids, and I just got this book. I was like, that's it. The universe is telling me, let's give the people what they want. Let's talk about that. So we got a lot of cool stories. Why don't we get into it first with the history?
Okay.
Even though we probably have touched on it in the past, there could be some new listeners, somebody who's not aware of the history. Why don't you get into that?
Okay. Well, Black-Eyed Kids, or the Black-Eyed Children, it's believed to have been an urban legend that started. It deals with children between the ages of 6 and 16. They're said to have pale skin, solid black eyes. They're also reportedly to be seen hitchhiking or panhandling. They're known to knock on people's doors of just like residential houses, to just walk up to folks pretty much. It's been in pop culture, you can say, since, I believe, the late 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here is, if you really dig into it, you're going to find that the legend started the posting, say, in 1998, was written by a fellow here in Texas, a reporter named Brian Bethel.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and he's from Abilene, Texas, about 2 hours west of where we are right now. And he related this tale that happened to him in Abilene, and it was supposed to be. People claim that it was on a ghost-related mailing list that he'd put this out on there, which was kind of like an earlier example of creepypasta. And people said that, oh, he wrote this story because he's a good writer and he made all this stuff up. Well, what's pretty wild is there's the television series, Monsters and Mysteries in America. And they came and did an article on him in 2012. And so Brian sat down and he actually wrote a whole article up for the Alabama Reporter News telling this experience. And it let him tell him in his own words of what everybody else just kind of assumed. And this was in 2012. I'm going to read you. This is what Brian writes. He said, I was contacted by a television program that wanted to interview me about a strange event that happened a few years ago, and with a touch of reluctance, I agreed. A cameraman and an interviewer came here and shot some footage of me and others in a rented home that they used as a backdrop, out and about in Abilene and in a local coffee shop, etc., like you normally would, any other little video. He said, there's a travel focus. As I said, and of sort, they kept insisting that I call this area the Badlands, in quotes. He said, having actually visited the Badlands in South Dakota, I protested, but they kept at it. And in the interest of just getting through the experience, I said, okay, with a little explaining, he said to no one, and he calls this place the Badlands. He's like, nobody does, but I'll do it for the show. So right there, you already know, well, now the show is kind of puffing it up.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yeah, no, that's very common.
Yeah, which is It's funny. So, okay, this, we told you this comes from Destination America, and this was him talking to the Monsters and Mysteries. But this is the story, and this is the one he tells that actually starts off this whole, what we thought was the beginnings of the Black-Eyed Kids. As near as I can figure, this happened in 1996. I managed to pin down the date that far. I feel like it happened in the spring or summer, since I remember wearing a pair of shorts, but one of my great regrets is not recording the actual date of the event. Now, after you hear the story, you'd think it'd be something you'd never forget, but given enough time between, not the case. My memory, while good, isn't quite eidetic. I like the fact that that's what he comes out and says, because you and I have talked about that all the time. Lots of times these older cases, your mind plays pranks on you.
Absolutely.
You start imagining things, so it's better if you have something, put it down right there, video yourself, record yourself in some way talking about it. He goes on to say, I had gone down to the former site of Camelot Communications, one of the area's original internet providers, to pay my bill. At the time, Camelot was located on North 1st Street near the movie theater, in the shadow of what was now Chase, then Bank One. I was using the light from the theater's marquee to write out my check, which I planned on to put in Camelot's night drop. Involved in my work, I never heard them approach. There was a knock on my driver's side window. 2 young boys, somewhere between 9 to 12 years old and dressed in hooded pullovers, stood outside. I cracked the window a bit, anticipating a spiel for money, but I was immediately gripped by an incomprehensible, soul-racking fear, and I had no idea why. A conversation ensued between one boy, a somewhat suave, oil-skinned, curly-headed young man, and myself. The other, a red-headed, pale-skinned, freckled young man, stayed in the background. The spokesman, as I've come to think of him, told me that he and his companion needed a ride. They wanted to see a movie, Mortal Kombat, but they had left their money at their mother's house. Could I give them a ride? Plausible enough, but all throughout this exchange, the irrational fear continued and grew. I had no reason to be frightened of these 2 boys, but I was terribly. After a bit more conversation, I looked up at the theater marquee and down at the digital clock display in my car. Mortal Kombat's last show of the night had already started. By the time I could have driven the boys anywhere and back, it would have practically been over. All the while, the spokesman uttered assurances. It wouldn't take long. They were just 2 little kids. They didn't have a gun or anything. The last part was a bit unnerving. I noticed that my hand had strayed toward the lock on my door. I pulled it away, perhaps a bit too violently. In the short time I had broken the gaze of the spokesman, something had changed, and my mind exploded into a vortex of all-consuming fear. Both boys stared at me with cold black eyes. The sort of eyes one sees these days on aliens or bargain basement vampires on a late-night television. Soulless orbs like 2 great swaths of starless night. I did what I feel any rational person would do. I full-on freaked out inside while trying to appear completely sane and calm. I apologized to the kids. I made whatever excuse came to mind, all of them designed to get me the hell out of there. Fast. The aura of fear was now a palatable, black-hanging thing, almost as if reality itself was wrapping around me. I wrapped my hand around the gear shift, threw the car in reverse, and began to roll up the window, apologizing all the while. My fear must have been evident. The boy in the back wore a look of confusion. The spokesman banged sharply on the window as it rolled up, his words, full of anger, echo in my mind even today. "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in." I drove out in the parking lot in blind fear, and I'm surprised I didn't sideswipe a car or 2 along the way. I stole a quick look in my rearview mirror before peeling out into the night. The boys were gone. Even if they had run, I don't believe there was any place they could have hidden from view that quickly. So I wrote down the story of what happened more or less as a cathartic exercise. and shared it with a small group of friends on an email list. And from there, it got out onto the wider internet and grew and grew and grew. He says, you type my name in Google, you'll find it soon enough. I've been contacted by everyone from Korean television stations planning New Year's Eve shows to regular people who want to just talk. More interesting to me has been the sporadic but more than occasional contact from people who think they might have seen something similar. Similar experiences have been now in places from suburban neighborhoods to your standard dark alleys throughout the country, possibly beyond. Kids like the ones I have seen allegedly been wandering through certain 24-hour big box retailers in the middle of the night and banging on front doors of numerous witnesses. Are all of these accounts true? Unlikely, he says. Are there enough to at least reinforce my belief that I encountered something truly strange? Definitely. Do I expect you to believe me blindly? Of course not. I might not even believe it myself if I'd heard such a story from someone else. I do feel like I can say this with some authority. This was back in the day when freaky coal-black contacts weren't widely available to a couple of kids in Abilene, Texas for anything under a small fortune. Will I ever know for certain what I saw? Probably not. Do I ever care to see them again? Hell no. As much as I still don't know about what happened that night and why, here's one thing that I do know. It's a gut feeling, but one that rises to a level of almost certainty. If I had given the spokesman and his friend a ride on that long ago evening, I don't think I would have been here to type this now. And that comes from the Reporter News of Abilene, Texas, and that's Brian's actual account of what happened to him.
That's incredible. And he's a legitimate, journalist.
Yes.
He's a legitimate journalist. I mean, why would he risk his career to make up this story and even have it published in his very own newspaper that he worked for? You know what I'm saying? I don't think somebody's going to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible.
Well, and he even
but I don't
says,
think somebody would do that.
He doesn't expect anybody to believe him.
Exactly.
And he's okay with that. He's okay with nobody believing him. It's like, I know what I saw. And that's what you get. Most of the people that have these encounters are like, I know what I saw. Right. If you believe me or not, that's fine. I know what happened to me. But yet again, even if he's making it up, why are there so many more tales of these stories? Why does it continue to grow? Is it like Slender Man? Are we manifesting this? Are we putting that energy out there because people are still like us and everyone else listening, digging into that?
It very well could be that. Not just that, but just what are they?
Exactly.
And what a common theme is I love the fact that they always say, just let us in. It won't take long.
Mm-hmm.
What won't take long? What? What won't take long? What are you talking about?
You voiding your bowels won't take long when they come in.
Right. Well, let's check out this next story. I had just gotten home from work around 6 p.m. Pacific time, as I live in sunny California, for all you people who are wondering where this happened. I live with 3 of my friends, but tonight, they were all going out on their own, doing their own thing, which I was completely fine with, since I hadn't had any time to myself in a while. I repeated my daily routine after work. I took a nice hot shower, made some dinner, and settled down and watched some television, and got ready for bed by this point. It was around 11:45 p.m., and I was exhausted. I had just closed my eyes to get some well-deserved shut-eye when I heard a loud knock at my door. At first, I thought it was just one of my roommates, but they all had keys. That's when I decided I should probably get up and go check and see who it was at the door. Annoyed, I got up and I made my way to the door. The first thing that you do at night before opening a door is you check the window or you use a peephole to see who's at the door. And that's exactly what I intended to do. But for some strange reason, that night, I went straight to opening the door. That's when I saw them at first. I wasn't intimidated at the beginning. I mean, what could go wrong? They're just kids, right? At this point, I could clearly make them out. They were both boys,
I'm guessing they were around the ages of 10 to 15 years old, and they were staring directly at the ground. They were both pale, almost like they were fading away in front of my eyes. One of the boys had brown hair, but even that seemed like it was fading. The other, who was a bit shorter, had black hair. Now, before you get ahead of yourself, this isn't weird by any means at all, at least not in this neighborhood. There's always kids around my neighborhood at this time of night playing and making noise. But this was the first time that two actually walked up and knocked on my door. After what seemed like an eternity of complete silence, the taller boy with the brown hair asked me to let them in. And that's when I was hit with a deep feeling of despair and terror. After a second of hesitation, I was finally able to ask, "Are you kids okay?" Again, the taller boy asked, more forcefully this time, "Let us in. We need to call home." So many things rushed through my head at this point. I almost didn't believe this was happening. There's no way in hell those black-eyed kids' stories are true. Terrified, I tried asking them to leave, but was interrupted by the taller boy again, asking me to let them in, and if I didn't, they'd never be able to go home. Almost as if I was hypnotized, I slowly started opening the door, wider and wider. I had no idea what was coming over me. I was about to say the magic words, giving them full right to come in. That's when I caught a glimpse of the shorter boy's eyes. There was nothing, only an abyss of blackness, staring into my very soul. I don't really know what happened, but my body suddenly reacted, and I slammed the door in their faces. I probably stood there for 15 minutes, till the shock finally wore off. Before long, one of my roommates opened the door and almost hit me with it. I couldn't go to sleep that night. Sometimes when I stare out my front bedroom window, I think I can almost see the two boys standing in a light post, not too far from my house. I think they're waiting for something, but I'm not sure what. What I do know is if you see kids at your door late at night, don't bother opening it. It might very well be the end. So that's a pretty chilling tale, right? Similar, though, to the other stories.
Yeah. So what it tells me still is don't open your door to children
late at night.
Right.
But you know, what if it's some kids in your neighborhood that really need some help? That's what's so scary is whatever's doing this, whether it be demonic possession, whether it's a demon or a jinn, or if it's an extraterrestrial or something like that, they know your weakness. They know that the way to get to you and to possibly, let you open and invite them in is to use children. So it seems like to me, it seems
that's
sinister,
almost everybody's
right?
weakness is wanting to help take care of a frightened or vulnerable child, and that is exactly right. If you saw
if you saw Stefan Struve standing on your front porch with black eyes, you're not opening the door. You're like,
Fabricio Verdum is lingering on your doorstep.
But you know what I'm saying?
Hey, I'm scared out of here. You're like, if you're scared, I'm not opening the door because I don't know what scares you.
When you see a little kid, though, you're more likely to react. It seems like they're playing on your emotions.
Well, what's funny is we get some that say they're teenagers. You get those, but it seems the majority of these are 9 or 10 to 12.
Tattered clothing.
It's right on that version of, because when they get a little older, something about teenagers, you start kind of being like, man, are they messing with me? You don't really, but when you start talking about 10 to 12 years old, you're kind of like, oh, that little fellow's, he's thought he could be, or he or she, they thought they could do it on their own. They can't.
And not just the black eyes, but they're always seen in like their clothes doesn't quite fit right.
Hoodies.
It's either too big or it looks tattered. Their skin looks gray like. I mean, it's a really bizarre.
It's very bizarre. Now just imagine if they knew what you were thinking.
Yeah, right? Some of the people, even in the last story, she talked about, she didn't know what she was doing. It was almost like she was being hypnotically controlled, like ESP or something.
Well, I've got a tale that it's right along that. It's almost, this is like the next level of being, to me, this is the next step of being terrified, is if they knew what you were thinking when they got there. All right, now the person that sent me this didn't really tell me where it took place, but this is how it starts, and this could be an alleged psychic ability that ties in with these BEKs. And they said, the black-eyed kids came to my door. I was alone in the house playing guitar when this long knock came on the door. I could see through the curtain on the door that it was kids, and living in a neighborhood with several families with children, this was nothing out of the ordinary. Yet before I even opened the door, I began to feel very worried. I opened it to find two boys around 10 to 12 standing on my porch. The taller boy had knocked, the smaller had been straddling a bike. I found this odd that he was on my porch on his bike. He would have had to carry it up my front steps, and instead of standing beside it, he was sitting on it. At first, they kept their heads down, and I asked, "Hi, can I help you?" They said they just needed to come in for a minute, and it wouldn't take long. I asked if they were from the neighborhood, and they didn't answer. It was about this time that I realized something wasn't right. Much went on before I finally finished my experience with these kids, but I can tell you without a doubt that they are real. They are evil by nature, and that you don't want them around you. I still have nightmares and an awful sense of dread thinking about them and wondering why I had been chosen. My honest belief is that they are demonic. Perhaps they're human Nephilim cross? I don't know. The entire eye is black, not just the pupil and the cornea. Their skin looked like the belly of a fish, and they smelt kind of like sulfur or dirt and death. And they are telepathic, because during my encounter, I thought, Jesus, what's happening here? And the taller boy looked at me with those cold black eyes and said, "You know he isn't real, don't you?" I believe the reason there are no stories of what happens when people let them in their homes is because these people are no longer here. I also feel that the loud booms heard globally are connected to these beings' arrivals and departures. I won't go into any more detail simply because it freaks me out knowing this happened to me, and I live wondering if I'm being stalked. Will I be here tomorrow, or a prisoner trapped in their dimension, tortured for 1,000 years and fed on? God only knows, and I pray daily for his protection. It's terrifying living day to day with this. If you encounter them, do not open the door. There wasn't a lot of detail in that story. What I found so fascinating about that is not only did he instantly know what he thought, but also the fact that this person that submitted this to us says that they feel like those booms could possibly be linked to them entering and leaving.
Yeah, right. That's what I found most interesting.
It's kind of strange, isn't it? You're like, I never thought about that.
Never thought of that. So
what if that is that?
That's them coming and leaving our dimension? It makes a sound.
Maybe that's what it is.
When you break the
right?
sound barrier, it makes a sound.
Yes.
Who knows?
Maybe so. Now I'm going to read you one more here, and this comes from Down Under. Okay. Now this was sent to us by a listener. This comes from an above top secret forum, so you'll take it for whatever you want to. You know how that stuff goes. You never know what you're going to get on there. But this actually comes from Australia. And the reason I found this is because it had a psychic link to it. And I was like, oh, let me check this out. Now, the screen name was Oz Weatherman. And this is what he wrote. It says, I just wanted to share an experience I had a few nights ago. Most of you know that I'm skeptical when it comes to things like these. And some of you even think I'm a disinfo agent working for the government, LOL. But I can assure you that what I'm about to write did indeed occur. I'm not assuming these were black-eyed kids or any related to the paranormal in any way, but there were sure a lot of things that were out of the ordinary and unusual. About midnight a few days ago, Thursday to be exact, I was simply relaxing at home, watching a few DVDs before heading to bed, when I was interrupted by a knock at the door. And as I normally do, I attempted to switch on the outdoor patio light, which conveniently blew up and flicked out when I switched it on, but nevertheless, I opened up the door. There were two kids at the door. Both looked as though they were about 12 or 13. The first one, which decided to stand off the back porch, was short and wore a plain red t-shirt and cargo shorts. I couldn't see much of him, to be honest, so I can't say much about what he looked like. The second, who I assume knocked on the door, was slightly taller than the first kid, and he wore a plain green t-shirt also with cargo shorts. He had medium-length black curly hair, sitting under a plain green baseball cap. And due to the conveniently blown out light bulb, I also couldn't see him clearly as well. This was compounded by the fact that the street lights in my street were out, which was strange. So I opened the door and asked what they wanted, and the first kid answered, "G'day, mate. We were just wondering if we could come in and get our kitten out of your backyard." Now, 3 things were odd about that immediately. I've never had a 13-year-old kid say to me, "G'day, mate," as a greeting. Usually it's hi or hey, never "G'day, mate." It was like he was trying to be stereotypically Aussie. His accent was weird, halfway between Australian and English. It appeared as though he was putting it on. And when I was 13, I was not going around on weekdays at midnights. Don't know about the rest of you. Now, considering the 3 points above, I was kind of taken back by the odd request. I said, "Okay, can I go get it for you?" To which he replied, "No, mate. We insist that we come get her. She gets really scared by strangers." Now, again, this was unusual. He called me mate again in that weird accent. His claim about the cat didn't seem really valid, and now this time I actually considered letting him in, but the weirdness factor actually overcame that. And I asked him, "How old are you, buddy?" To which the one at the back replied, and I must say enthusiastically, 16. He too had the same weird accent. I said, "You don't look 16. And the kid closest to the door started becoming a little tense and changed the subject back. "Look, mate, we really need to come in and get our kitten." I was a bit shocked how his friendly tone turned hostile so quickly, so I replied, "Look, kid, if you're going to be rude, you won't be getting your kitten back." He apologized. "Sorry, mate, but please, we really need to get our cat." The other replied, "Please let us in." Now I was becoming very suspicious of their intentions. A lot of stuff has been happening lately here in Australia, like assaults and home burglaries, where adults have been bashed by kids. It's becoming more frequent, so naturally, my next instinct was to see if I could spot any concealed weapons. What happened next actually shocked me. The first kid said, "We don't have any weapons on us." Dumbfounded, I almost responded, "How did you know I was thinking that?" But changing the subject to avoid them becoming more suspicious, what I actually said is, "Does your mother know where you are out this late?" He replied, "Come on, mate, just let us in. Our mother will get angry if we don't come home with the kitten." By this time, I'd had enough. I said, "Tell you what, give me your number and I'll call your mom back tomorrow. And if I find the kitten, I'll bring it back." I almost again opened the door to give them a paper and pen. There was paper and pen near the front door on a table, so I didn't have to leave the room. And as I moved my hand to the door, the kid stepped right up. This was where it turned from unusual to creepy. He had a really strange grin on his face, and I could have swore his eyes were completely black. That made me immediately jerk back from the door. I said, "Okay, you need to get away from my front door now." And he answered, "We're just kids, mate. Let us get our kitten." And I replied, "Leave now or I'm calling the cops." Both kids simply stared at me at this point. That really freaked me out, and I had the sneaking suspicion that they wanted to do something to me. To show them I was serious, I turned back and grabbed my cell phone, with the intention of making it look like I was serious about making the call to the cops. But when I turned back, they were gone, just like that. So I shut the door. I had a bit of desire to go out there and see where they went, but I also had a bad feeling about the event that just occurred. The whole thing lasted only about 2.5 minutes, but it was the most bizarre thing that's ever happened to me. Now, I'm not someone that's had a lifetime experiencing anything strange in the paranormal, and I believe that most of the stuff is either rubbish or a case of mistaken identity, so I'm actually looking for an explanation to this.
Man, that is a great story. Creepy, too.
That's insane, isn't it?
Yeah, just the way, just listening to you tell it. On my mind, I'm drifting off, and I'm thinking of what that must have been like. And man, that is creepy.
Yeah, I can't imagine. This is one of those things I don't ever want to see.
It's so similar, though. All the stories are very similar. When you were reading that story, I almost thought it was a story that I've heard before, because they're so similar.
Yeah, well, when they talk about the two kids.
There's always two, seems like.
Why is the taller one always in the lead?
Yeah, right.
What is going on with that?
I don't know. It's pretty cool.
He said that just just so happened conveniently when he flipped his light switch on, the light bulb burned out. The street lights were burned out. It's kind of like the sliders story that you did.
Right, yeah.
You're kind of like, what is going on? Why does it seem like it dims when they're around? I don't know.
Just like when a UFO's around.
Yeah.
Right?
But
electromagnetic
the one thing that I get from all these is everybody says they feel it. And what are you always told? You're always told, follow your instincts, follow your gut feeling. And that's our way of, like, when you get that feeling of something's not right, trust that on anything that you do. And
I think
how many times is it, I know we've talked about it, and we were going to do a stories and stuff on about the third man effect. Well, what if that's your gut feeling is your third man effect?
Right. I mean, it's a sixth sense. I think you have the ability. I mean, they've almost proven with tests now. I was reading not too long ago about tests where they can actually prove when someone's staring at you. Like, you can kind of become aware of it.
Well, and this seems like they know there's something not right about this.
But you know what I'm saying? Everybody who's ever lived, there's always everyone, you can think back to a time where you felt the hair stand up on the back of your neck, or like you're saying, you just have a bad feeling, or you've thought something and then you talked yourself out of it, and then, months later, something happens, a relationship dissolved, and you're like, yep, I should have went with my gut instinct. I knew it. I knew it the entire time. You're like, you'd be surprised how much you can perceive.
Yeah.
Without even knowing. And it's a common thing in these kids that people feel dread. They feel nauseous. They feel like they want to do something to me.
Well, and what I like is everybody tries to be brave up front. You try to be like, because it makes you always think, like if you show weakness, are they just going to jump on you?
Well, and we've done stories in the past about even taking place at like a Marine military barracks.
Yes.
So these are guys that are soldiers. Or a guy that I remember one time was like a prison guard or a martial artist or something.
Yeah.
And he was terrified. He's like, look, I'm a big guy. I should not be scared of a 13-year-old kid. I'm like 6'8", yoked. Yeah. And I've got guns.
This ain't right. It's because it's not normal. It's paranormal.
Right. It's totally creepy. Now, you were mentioning in that story, I remember the guy talking about he was reaching for his cell phone. So obviously it's a rather new story. And even the first story reported from the guy in Abilene. But it turns out there's some possible older stories that have taken place. Now, check this one out. I had just recently found your show and was listening to you guys talking about black-eyed kids, and it reminded me of this story told to me by my grandfather of an incident that took place sometime in the late 1918 or either early 1919 near Sandoval, Illinois. He told me that it had been hot this past summer, and the heat lingered for months, so he had all of his windows and doors open in his house. He was there, just sitting on the porch, reading a book, because it was too stuffy inside, and of course there was no television. He got up and went to make a snack and get a drink. That's when he heard a knock. Now this struck him as odd, because most people would just call out his name if they knew him, so he figured it was some kind of vagrant, just looking for a meal or some labor. He lived by some train tracks, so hobos would often come from time to time, and it was pretty normal. So he goes to the hall to take a look at who's at his front door, and he sees that there's two kids are standing in the entranceway, and they call out to him, "May we come in to rest? It's a long way home." So he says, "They're welcome to sit on the front porch, but it's too hot inside this house to be comfortable, and you're not coming in." He asked if they came from the rails, and they just said, "We need to come in. May we?" From what he said, the kids made him feel peculiar because 1, they wouldn't look at him directly. 2, they were too clean. My grandfather said that riding the trains was very dirty. You always got grease on you or coal dust, or sometimes you'd even cut your hands or knees from riding on the trains. He lost his leg doing that very thing, which kept him out of the war. But these kids, from what he said, were pristine, like they were going to Sunday school. They weren't sweating, and their hair was neat, and it struck him odd. If they had been walking in open fields in the middle of the heat, they would be unkempt or disheveled. He asked them again, if they would like to sit on the front porch. And the girl, they just repeated, "May we come in?" And then she just kept asking, "May we? May we? May we?" Over and over again, until my grandfather slammed his hand down and said, "Damn you both, no!" The girl stopped speaking, and he said they both just stood quiet until the girl looked at him, eyes as black as coal, and said once more, "Mister, may we please come in?" My grandfather said he just walked to the kitchen and sat down, not knowing what to do. He said he felt like someone had punched him in his stomach. He said he sat there until his dog came rushing in the house, shaking like a leaf. So at the end, he never told anyone, chalking it up to heat exhaustion. But he said it troubled him for many, many years. My question is, how far back do stories of black-eyed kids go? And from what I've read, it seems like they can somehow hypnotize people. Do you think that they could do that with a dog, too? To keep it from barking like a warning? Now that's a crazy story, right?
That's, yeah, that's a very unnerving story.
1918 or 1919, earlier. His grandfather didn't remember. And apparently he told this boy this guy, and when he was listening to our show, it kind of reminded him of that. He never really heard of the black-eyed kids till he heard our show, and then it reminded him of a story his grandfather told him.
Well, and there was a girl in this one.
Yeah, there was a girl.
You don't get a lot of girls.
He said they looked like they were
them.
dressed for like Sunday school or something, but pristine. They were their hair was perfect, and it was the heat of the day, I guess.
Yeah.
He's like, and he is exactly right. I understand what he's saying. Back then, I mean, if your neighbors or your family members knew you, I mean, they would just go, "Hey, Cam, how's it going?" He wouldn't knock on the door. So he was like, immediately, must be a hobo, must be a salesman, something.
And how far was his neighbors? That's what makes me.
Yeah,
the first thing I'm thinking is, how far were your neighbors? Because if your neighbors were 6-8 miles away and you got somebody just walked up, knocked on your door, instantly back then you become a little on alert. You're like, wait a second, what are you doing here?
Right. So it wasn't necessarily at nighttime or anything like that. But once again, he says he felt nauseous. And I guess as anybody would do, especially an old timer, he tried to rationalize it by saying, I must have had a heat stroke or something.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't really see what I saw. I felt weird. I think I just imagined it. But what a bizarre story.
To imagine. If you just imagined it, that's a lot of detail.
I've been outside working the heat a lot. I've never had an accidental
Never gone that crazy. Never thought I saw some stuff like that. Well, sticking along with the whole idea of maybe even a little bit older than the 1996 cases, not quite as old as what you were just talking about. I've got one that I found that was supposed to be in the 80s is when this was allegedly taking place. And it's a lot like what you were talking about. It says a man was surprised to hear noises coming from multiple windows throughout his house at 2 a.m. in the morning. He initially jumped to the conclusion some of his neighbors were out partying late and didn't really realize their visitation would be an unwelcomed intrusion at such a late hour. Instead, when he unlocked and opened his front door, he was shocked to see 2 young boys staring at him. And the man was hit with a sudden and inexplicable feeling of dread. He says, fighting the urge to vomit from the strong smell of mold, which instantly overwhelmed his senses. Shockingly, the youngest of the black-eyed children made an extremely unusual request at this point. And he goes on to say, now, by reading that you're used to hearing these creatures asking to use a telephone or a restroom to gain access, but this time, this black-eyed child asked to use a telegraph. So the situation became even weirder when the man realized the unusual neighborhood noises had completely stopped. He no longer heard the humming of electricity or any nearby street sounds, seeming as if he had stepped back in time momentarily. It says after a brief pause, the man recovered enough to tell the young boys he didn't have a telegraph service at his home, and this answer obviously didn't go over well, and they persisted to bang on the doors and the windows, he said, for an extremely long time that evening before finally giving up and moving on. Now, how wild is that? That we always hear him talking about, let me borrow your phone, and this guy's, let me borrow a telegraph.
Yeah, right? That's insane. It's almost like he had a time slip.
Like a time slip with him.
Yeah, they sucked him in.
It's crazy. And then he says the smell of mold. The guy's like, it was such a, and we already heard that deep, like dank, musty, dead earth smell.
Yeah. I
don't understand that, man. I don't get that one at all. But I do like how the smells are going along with these. A lot of people are reporting more and more of these smells. It's a lot like the Bigfoot smells, and then they always tell you that what smells like the strongest of your senses.
Yes.
So that's something that's really going to stick with you. Now, how would you like to be that? Like in the middle of the night, you're walking down the road, your car broke down, and you get that smell hit you again. You're going to be like, uh-oh, time to pick up the pace.
Exactly. So, I mean, what are these black-eyed kids? I mean, I've heard different theories.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them even say that they're alien-human hybrids. Because if you take what a typical-looking gray looks like, the gray skin, the thin, the pasty body, and then the big black eyes, and then you hear all these reported cases of these women being abducted.
These their children,
and the eggs were removed from them.
I got you.
And then they create a hybrid alien human. And then some of the women even talk about being abducted and then shown these children, these hybrids, and they talk about them having black eyes. So is that what this is?
I don't.
Or are they are they demons? Are they jinn? Or like you're saying, are they tulpas that we've created?
We've completely manifested. I know that I've a lot of the stuff I've read, that one of the articles even talks about. They believe that this may be something that's attributed to David's work in the Missing 411. Is what if you're out in the woods and you come across one in the woods? See, that's one thing. You never hear the stories about that. It always seems like they're coming to homes, knocking on doors.
Right.
And the reason you never hear stories about them catching you out in the woods is because you never come back from it.
Right.
If they catch you out in the open, you can't get away. You know what I mean? It's but it's also funny too, because it's almost like the vampire stuff. They can't come in unless you invite them in. There's a lot of strange angles to this whole thing that still, I don't believe it's all a hoax, man. I just don't. Something about me, I just don't buy into the fact that it's all made up.
Either way, truly terrifying. I'm glad that we shared some of these stories. Now, I've got a few more, but we're going to be sharing those on the Elite Show. So if you haven't signed up for that, you can sign up for Elite. Anyways, let's take a break. You're listening to Expanded Perspectives.
And all the pain will fade away. Dreaming of the day. And all the pain will fade away.
And we're back with Expanded Perspectives. I hope everybody enjoyed those black-eyed kid stories. I couldn't suggest stronger. If you really enjoy them, you have to pick up the book by David Weatherly, The Black-Eyed Children. And you can go to his website, twocrowsparanormal.com. This book is built by Leprechaun Press, which I think is his publishing company. It's an incredible book. I'll put show notes or links to it in the show notes. An incredible read. It's got a whole bunch of stories. Like I said, I've got 2 or 3 I'm going to be sharing on the Elite Show that we didn't have time for today. But man, it's a great book. And I love the stories. I love the thoughts. But, moving on, we've been begging people, literally begging people for the last couple episodes to please help us with the reviews to get to 200 in America. And we hit it. We hit our goal.
Yes, we did.
So we want to thank everybody that's been writing and rating our show for us on iTunes. We really appreciate it. Cam, you said you got some shout-outs?
I've got them right here. Now, this is just in America. I'm going to leave the world up to you, my friend.
Okay.
In America, we're going to start off with Haley127, Real Kempy, Gafal, thank you all 3 completely. Marshall, 880, thank you. Library Girl Erica, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Milk Mutt, thank you. Whatever is not taken, thank you so much. Don't Bother 9, thank you. The one and only Miss Kevy Kev. Glad we could get Kevy out there to actually do something, mowing the yard.
That's
So
right.
thank you so much. Muslow the Magnificent, Turquoise and Beef Jerky. Any devs listening, thank y'all. Topher Strolls, Known Terrestrial. Fats 101, Donahue 69. Big shout out to y'all. Deborah Sear, Snooze 121, Time Constraint. Mark Fish Belly White. Love that name.
Yeah, thank you.
All of y'all so much. Apple Kit, thank you. CJ Deere, thank you so much. And Grisner, thank you so very much for we hit it.
We
now,
really appreciate it. We
don't want to stop. Y'all
We
keep
don't wanna
throwing
stop.
them.
That's exactly right. Now let's try to get to 300.
Let's go for it. We got a year now. Let's go for it. Let's pound these out now. Oh, wait. I forgot. I got two more here.
Oops, okay.
Hash Thu. There's a Hash Thu. Thank you. And Perry 1127. Thank you.
Awesome. Now moving on to the other parts of the world. Ireland. This comes from Ireland. Baldman 89. Thank you very much. I too am going bald, so it's no problem. I can understand it. I feel
Thank
your
you.
pain. Coming all the way from Japan.
Heyo.
Rachel Sato, thank you very much. Back to Australia, Ms. Sci-Fi, thank you very much. Up in Canada, Stephen A., we appreciate it. And moving to Sweden, the Swede 80,
Sweet.
right? And Paralapsis, thank you so much for everybody. I'm sure there are other countries, but we're just not aware of those. We really appreciate it. And not just the shout-outs. I'd like to take the time to thank everyone who's even made Expanded Perspectives possible. Starting off, I'd like to thank our bud, Micah Hanks. He's offered so much help in the background that people just don't see it. We couldn't be where we are today without his help with a lot of things. Darren Grimes and Grant Dunlap of Grammarica, they've helped us out with things before.
Yep.
Off air, Jim Harold, I've talked to him many times through Facebook messaging, and he's given me tips and pointers whenever we were starting this podcast out. Benjamin Grundy and Aaron Wright over at Mysterious Universe, we've talked to those guys off air before, and they've given us some insights as well as things to avoid and things to do. Derek Smith of Pretty Lights.
Yes, my hat's off.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
allowing us to use his wonderful music. When we were first starting the show, we were trying to come up with what we're going to use, and you got to be real careful about what you choose, because even if it's a band that you really, really like, like Led Zeppelin or I don't know, Leonard Skinner or something, you got to think, is this, because I like this one song, is that going to be good bumper music for every show? And also to be able to mix it up. And I was a big Pretty Lights fan, and so was Cam.
Well, we got lucky because my son found it whenever in wrestling season.
Years ago, yep.
Yeah, and he's like, here, check it. And then we've been listening to it, and then we're like, let's do it.
So we approached him, and it was graciously accepted.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's pretty cool. Also, the Black Angels. Now, for you people that aren't Elite members, the Black Angels do our intro music for the Elite show. Now, they're a band out of Austin, Texas, and they, too, allow us to use their music. We really appreciate it.
If you like the Doors, you're going to love the Black Angels.
All right. Manzanita Carpenter over at Inner Traditions. We'd like to thank her. She provides us with numerous authors to talk to, as well as books. Kate Warwick over at Warwick & Associates and New Page Books. Thank you so much, Kate. Kat at Llewellyn Books. Thank you so much. Patrick at Anomalist Books. Thank you so much. Joe Badden, or Joe Badon. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Thank you for the artwork. He made the awesome image that you see as our logo. Because the first logo I created, and you can tell the difference between Joe Badden and my artwork.
And Kyle Philson artwork.
Right? I'm not very good at that. I'm not very good at anything, really. But we appreciate all those people.
That goes on the long list of stuff Kyle's not very good at.
Oh, yeah, right. Stick it at the top. Stop at top of the stack. We'd like to thank all the listeners, especially.
All of
without y'all, right, it's none of this is possible, really. I mean, if the numbers were hardly coming in, I don't think I could continue to do it. I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, I'm not going to throw a pity party for myself. But, we both have full-time jobs. We're both married. I have family I have small children. Cam's are mostly grown. But then we still have to do all the research, all the book reading.
That's what we do.
The interviews. But I love doing it.
Yes.
I mean, it's a real passion of mine.
And I love talking to all of you guys. Everybody that sends us messages and stuff, I love it. So keep emailing us, messaging us. I love it, man. I will talk to anybody, everybody. Let's do this.
Absolutely. And like I said, you can tell that me and Kim are passionate about it. We try to sound excited on the air, and I think it comes off that way.
We are.
And we get numerous messages all the time where people would like to have a beer with us or sit around and talk. Well, some of you might get that opportunity. In about 2 months, we're going to the Paradigm Symposium.
We're going to go. We talked about not for a long time, and we've said we were going on.
The last 3 years.
Yeah, and then something come up we never did. This time, we've set it aside. This is what we're going to do. And we've been approached by several listeners that are like, hey, are y'all going? Are you going to make it? I'm going on. So we're going. And Mr. Jason Pentrol, he'd asked me a while, and I'm like, I told him no, but things have changed, brother, and we're going. So anybody that's going to be around up there at Paradigm, hit us up. If you don't want to go to Paradigm and you're still going to be up there in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, get in contact with us.
Yeah, the dates is October 1st through the 4th.
Yeah, we'll be up there. We'll come out. We won't just stay there. We'll take a cab. We'll go somewhere. We'll all go sit and eat. We'll all go get a beer. It doesn't matter. We're down with it. Just get in contact with us. Come shake a hand, man. Just let us know that you're a listener. We'd like to meet each and every one of y'all. So we'll be there. If you want to come hang out, we'll be up there running around.
Maybe even if you don't live up there, you can find a way up there. I mean, there's going to be a lot of great speakers. There's going to be Randall Carlson. Mm-hmm. There's going to be Richard Dolan, Travis Walton, of course, Micah Hanks, Thomas Fusco, Nick Redfern, Rita Louise, John Ward, James Swagger, Laird Scranton, Scotty Roberts, and a few more. It's going to be a neat time. It's going to be moderated by Jim Harold, so you can meet him too.
Yep.
We're all going to be there.
Darren and Graham are going to be there.
Yep, that's right. Red Pill Junkie, he's going to be there. Maybe we can all sit down at the bar and have a beer.
It will be, I hope so. I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm going to put links to it in the show notes if you'd like to go. It's going to be a good time. Once again, it's October 1st through 4th, 2015. Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Yep.
It's going to be pretty cool. Cam?
Yes, sir.
What do you think, man? 100 shows.
Can't believe it. It's gone by quickly. Yeah. I cannot believe it. It really is. It's pretty wild. So yeah. I can't thank everybody enough. We've had a great time. If you love the show, we're going to be around. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. Not unless one of us gets killed off. Not unless me and Kyle get killed traveling to the Paradigm.
Right. And one more shout out I'd like to give because I almost forgot. Keith Rowland over at Art Bell's Dark Matter Radio. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for putting us on there. And everybody else. Cam, what do you got planned for the week?
Just work and trying not to melt. It's awful warm down here. We're going to keep rocking and rolling on that. I'm doing a little more research and stuff. I'm doing a lot more research into Fae things. And I'm compiling, and I may end up, I can't guarantee you, I may end up piling it all into a book. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm kind of writing on the whole deal of some Fae stuff that's a little bit different. So I may end up making that into a book.
All right. For everybody that's an Elite member, we're going to be talking more Black Eyed Kids stories on Thursday. For everybody else, we'll talk to you next Monday.
Everybody take care, and we will see y'all later. Peace.